Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week I've got an exciting and fun new presentation to share with you from my first time speaking at a cannabis conference. Last weekend I flew up to Chicago for CannaCon, a big conference in the cannabis industry. Dispensaries aren't able to run Google ads since marijuana is still illegal at the federal level, but recreational weed is legal in 19 states now. And for dispensaries in those states, SEO is the most important marketing channel for growing the business. I wanted to share a redo of my presentation here, as always. This was a fun one since I included just about every stoner movie ever made in the movie references. Check it out. This is Harold and Kumar's guide to showing up in local searches. I'm Greg Gifford, but you know that because you're watching that on my video series. But for those of you that might be seeing this for the first time, I'm the Vice President of Search here at SearchLab, and I do have a weekly video series, which you're watching now, but I've been doing it for several years. You can check out each video's release on Tuesdays at searchlabdigital.com/blog. I'm also lucky enough to get to speak at conferences all over the world about digital marketing. And sometimes at these conferences, you see some speakers that might be really excellent with the information that they're sharing, but they're not great at public speaking. And they'll stand locked behind the podium and their backs to the crowd because they're reading their own slides. And typically the background of the slide is plain white and it's black Arial font. And each slide is packed with bullet points, and they just sit there and read bullet points. And because of that, I strongly believe that bullet points kill kittens. So we're going to keep all the kitties safe and not have any bullet points in today's presentation. You saw the Harold and Kumar reference there at the beginning. I am a movie nut. I've got both of my arms and one of my legs sleeved up with movie portrait tattoos. I was a film major in college. I love to share my love of movies every time I do a presentation at a conference. So there's always a movie theme. Today's theme is comedy movies. We have 110 references to comedy movies with at least one for every year in the last 50 years and 36 movies from 1985, which was the golden year for American film comedy. There is attribution to the side, so if there's something you see that you're not familiar with, you'll know what movie it is. And also, because this is a cannabis conference, I've included almost every stoner comedy movie ever made. So let's get this going. Why the long face? Are you spending too much time looking up at competitors that rank higher than you in searches? It's really frustrating, isn't it? I know a lot of times when you think about SEO, you feel like you're kind of clueless about what it takes to get your site to show up. But never fear, I'm here today to help you with that. Now, I don't want to seem like I've got a huge head with its own gravity system, but I've been doing this for a long time. I've got a lot of awesome tips to share with you. And unlike some speakers you may have seen in the past, I'm not going to talk out of my ass. I'm going to give you tips that you can use immediately to help get more visibility in online searches. But keep in mind, there's no miracle pill when it comes to SEO. You have to do everything. You have to know what works. You have to know what doesn't work. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the effort. But if you put in the time and effort, you'll be able to make your sites as visible and as awesome as the Flying Elvises. And just like a fat guy in a little coat, I'm going to squeeze in a ton of information for you here today. So it's important to note that recreational marijuana is legal in 19 states and the District of Columbia now, but it's hard to find dispensaries in local searches in a lot of those locations. If you're not showing up in local searches, you're going to lose to competitors who do. And dispensaries are not allowed to run pay-per-click ads because marijuana is still illegal at the federal level. So SEO is the best and most important marketing channel for dispensaries. It's really important to understand the distinction between regular SEO and local SEO because Google's local algorithm works differently than the traditional algorithm and includes some additional signals that the traditional algorithm doesn't pay attention to. So if you need help understanding how local SEO works, I like to use pizza delivery as an example. If you're sitting at your office and you type 2 words into Google, pizza delivery, you get a list of all the pizza spots right near your office. But then if you go home and try the same search at home with the same 2 words, you get totally different search results. And that's without including any phrase that specifies a location like a city, a neighborhood, or a phrase like near me or nearby. And that's because your physical location in the real world influences what you see when you do searches. Definitely go watch the video. It explains a lot more about that. If this explains how it works, some simple back of the bar napkin math can help you understand why you need it. So let's say in this case, we're talking about dispensaries, and there are 20 dispensaries in town, and there's only 13 spots on page 1 of Google because you've got 10 organic spots and 3 spots in the map pack. But you're going to have some aggregate sites like Weed Maps or even maybe High Times or anything like that. And because of that, we want to take those aggregate sites out and just look at the places where a dispensary could actually show in search results on the first page. Typically, that's going to be 7 or 8 spots. So if there's 20, 25 dispensaries in town and only 7 or 8 spots, that's a whole lot of people that don't show up on page 1. And that means your competitors are going to be getting all that business. It's important to understand also where the local algorithm powers the search results that searchers might see. The most obvious clue that the local algorithm is displaying search results is the map pack. It used to be the map on top with 3 results underneath. The map has been moved over to the right side. Map's still on top on mobile. But if you see the map pack, that shows you for sure, hey, guys, this is a local search result. And then you can click more locations at the bottom of the map pack. That takes you to the local finder page, which goes beyond just the top 3 and shows you everything that matches that search query. Customers can also go directly to Google Maps and do a search inside of Google Maps. And below the map pack, it's not standard organic. It is localized organic results as well. It's really important to pay attention to a study that happens every year called the Local Search Ranking Factor Study. And what they do is they take the top 40 experts-ish worldwide, send out a really in-depth survey about positive factors, negative factors, competitive factors, because nobody knows exactly what's in Google's algorithm. But if you talk to the people that study this day in and day out and are working in this day in and day out and aggregate all their answers, you get a pretty good idea of what influences visibility in searches. And this version of the study came out in December, so it is the current year's version, even though it's technically the 2021 ranking factors. It's because it was released in December. This is the guide for this year and what needs to be done. And you get 2 pie charts, one that shows the factors that matter for showing up in the map pack or in Google Maps, and the other for showing up in localized organic. Obviously, most businesses want to show up in that local map pack because it's right at the top of the search results. So let's talk about that for a second. The second most important factor that influences your visibility in that map pack is that you have a physical address in the city that's being searched. So if you're out in the suburbs, even though you're part of that metro area, you're not going to show up in searches for the actual city because your competitors that are in the actual city are going to show up there because it's been specified in the query. Then the most important factor that influences map pack visibility is proximity. So how far away the search result is from the person doing the search. This is why sometimes you can do a search at your place of business and you'll rank number 1 on the map pack, and then you do the search from home and you don't even show up in the map pack. It doesn't mean that your SEO stopped working. It just means you're searching from a different location and there are things closer to you that match the intent of that search query. But you can't influence either of those things. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to share the things that you can influence to increase your visibility and gain more local customers. Let's start off with the content on your site and how that content is optimized, since that's the most important bit. I like to boil things down to simple concepts to make it easier to remember and easier to understand. And the easiest way to think about SEO is that if you want to show up as a search result when someone types a particular search phrase into Google, you need a page of content on your website that's about that concept. And that page needs to be the best answer in the local area to the question that the searcher is asking. And then you want to make sure that the content is actually about your business and about the local area, because what ends up happening is a lot of competing businesses in the same market have the same generic content on their site, and there's no indication as to why you should go shop at one or shop at another because everybody looks the same. You want to make sure your content is uniquely about your business and the experience of doing business with you, and it needs to show that you are a part of that local market and that local area. There's a really easy way to test this. Take the homepage content or your About Us page content and change only 2 things: the name of the city that you're in and the name of your business. Could you then take that content, put it across the country? So let's say we're talking about a dispensary in Washington, D.C. Could we change the name of the dispensary in Washington, D.C. to the name of a dispensary in Denver and change Washington, D.C. to Denver and nothing else, would that content still work on that dispensary site in Denver? If it would, that means your content's not really about you and it needs to be updated. Another way to test your content is to read it out loud. Everything that's on your website should sound like something that you would say face-to-face to a customer that just walked in the front door. It needs to sound like spoken speech. If you read it in your head, you don't catch the things that sound awkward out loud. When you read it out loud to another person, you catch those things that are a little too marketing focused and not enough conversationally focused, and you know you need to update that content. And then once you have your awesome content written, you need to optimize it so it's super easy for Google and for humans to understand what that content is about. So I'm going to run you through the elements on each page that you need to optimize for Google. And keep in mind, as I go through these elements, when I say keyword phrase, it's the same keyword phrase on the entire page throughout each of these elements. And the location phrase is the same location phrase across the page as well. The first most important element is the title tag. It's what shows in the little tab above where you enter the URL in the browser. It's also what typically populates the blue text of your link when you show as a search result in Google. You should never put the name of your business first. You're the only business named that. You'll always show up number one if someone searches explicitly for the name of your business. So you want to optimize around the phrase that you're targeting. So you want that keyword phrase and you want your city and potentially state abbreviation there as well. Second most important element on the page is the H1 heading. That is the big, bold headline above the text area on your page. You should only have one H1 heading on the page. It should be a bit more conversational. It should include the same keyword and location phrase as well. Obviously, it needs to be in the page content, but if you've written the best answer in the local area, that's also uniquely about your business and the local area, you wouldn't really have to do too much optimization here. You're already going to have that language in the content. Pretty much every website platform allows you to set custom URLs for your internal pages, so it is always better to include the keyword phrase and the location phrase in the URL for your internal pages on the site. Image alt text is another big one. Years ago, Google couldn't tell what was in an image, so alt text is a descriptor that's inside of the code that causes the image to display in the browser that describes the image. But now machine learning systems allow Google to tell pretty much exactly what's in an image, but alt text is still part of the algorithm, but it's something that most business owners and a lot of marketers don't do anything with, so it's a great way to outpace competitors. And then the meta description is important as well. Now, the meta description is behind the scenes code, so it doesn't show on the page, but it does populate the couple of gray sentences underneath your blue link when you show as a search result in Google. So it's important to approach it more from an advertising standpoint. You don't want to worry about stuffing keywords because they might help you rank better, because they won't. What you want to do is include your keyword phrase and your location phrase because you want to write really compelling text. Think of it like an ad because you want to make sure that people will click through more often to your site when you show as a search result. You also need to have a blog, and you need to post to the blog on a regular basis. And the reason for this is that the content that goes on your site is different than the content that goes on your blog. Website content is bottom of the funnel content. It's content that's meant for customers to land on and convert into a customer, whether that means they fill out a form or they call you or they order online or they actually come to see you at your dispensary. Content on the blog is more early funnel content. It's the people that aren't sure what they want to buy or where they want to buy. So it's middle to early funnel. And the earlier you get in front of someone, the more likely you are to be in consideration when they actually decide to make a purchase. The other really cool thing about blog content is you can get noticed before people are looking to buy if you share helpful, useful, relevant information about the local area. Think of it like putting a billboard up. You don't expect that everyone that sees the billboard is going to come buy from you, but it's there to generate brand awareness. That's how blog content can work as well. When you share helpful information about the local area, it will show up in searches when people aren't looking to come buy weed, and then you get exposed, and then you're more likely to be in consideration if they do want to come buy something from you later. If you need ideas for how to do this, I've got a really awesome video that shares 10 concepts for localized blog posts that you can use as a springboard to come up with your own ideas of things that you could write about on your blog. So now we're going to move on and talk about links to your website. These are links that other websites have pointed to your website, and they're really weighted in Google's algorithm. And because we're targeting the local algorithm, we want those links to come from local businesses and local websites. So the easiest way to do this is to just get involved in the local community. The kind of old school grassroots marketing techniques that people did before we had the internet, where you got out and joined the Chamber of Commerce and did things in the community to get exposure, those are all amazing opportunities to get local links. So I'm going to run you through some ideas here as well, really quickly, to give you some ideas to think about in your head for things that you could do to increase local visibility and to also get some more local links, which helps you show up more in online searches. The first being sponsorships. Now, Google's not okay with you buying links, but Google is totally okay with you buying sponsorships that result in links. So, 5Ks, golf tournaments, anything like that in the local area that's offering any sort of sponsorship, jump in on that. They're great opportunities to get local visibility, but also to get local links. Local meetups are great as well. So you can go to a site like meetup.com and look for groups that have regular monthly meetings. You can throw in $50-$60 a month to buy their snacks and their drinks, and you get some killer links out of it. It's super awesome. Find any way you can to get local bloggers to write about you, even if those bloggers say, hey, I got a free pre-roll for writing about my experience shopping at this dispensary. Who cares? You still get an awesome local link out of it. Talk to your staff about what they do in their free time. This isn't what the business does in the community. It's what the employees do in the community. What are they passionate about? What are their hobbies? What do they do? If somebody is really involved with their church, or if somebody's got a kid that's on a club soccer team, or maybe one of your employees drives a Corvette and they're a member of the local Corvette car club, anything like that is an opportunity, especially if your employees are on the leadership board or leadership group of that particular local organization. It's going to be really easy to get a link from that organization's website. Neighborhood watch sites are great as well. A lot of neighborhood crime watches now have someone in the neighborhood that can throw up a WordPress site, so they'll have their own WordPress site. And if you can come up with content that is valuable for that neighborhood, and really the easiest thing to do here is a neighborhood specific discount or special, then you're going to get a really awesome link that is relevant down to a neighborhood level. And you'll also get a lot of referral traffic, because a lot of those people will come to you because of the fact they get an extra 5% off or whatever your special might be. You can also use Google to come up with your own opportunities. So create your seed keyword list, your own ideas of things that you would want to go after, and just throw your city name in there. Google's going to spit out a list of all the opportunities. It's going to be super killer. We also have a questionnaire that we send out every time we onboard a new client, and that questionnaire helps prioritize some concepts and some ideas, and also uncover some low-hanging fruit of things that may have already happened in the past. So I'm sharing it with you today. You can download it right there at that link. Now we're going to talk about customer reviews, which are obviously important for humans, but they're really weighted in Google's local algorithm, so they're important to talk about. The most important thing that you need to remember here is you've got to make it easy for people to leave reviews, and you need to ask every single customer that comes in the front door to leave a review for you. Watch the video. It goes a lot more in depth about the optimal reputation management process, but I'm going to pull a few parts out to talk about. The most important being the easy bit here. We want to just don't tell people, go leave me a review on Google or go leave me a review wherever, because they have to figure out where to go. Set up a page on your site. Typically, it's going to be domain.com/reviews that has a simple thank you message. Hey, thanks for doing business with us today. Let us know how we did. And then you give them options and you link to all of your review profiles so they can leave a review where they're most comfortable. And that way, it's an easy URL to remember, and everyone at the business can remember that URL to be able to tell customers where to go. Something else that's important to remember: if a customer leaves a review that includes the important keywords that you are trying to rank better for, you're going to start showing up better in those searches. Now, obviously, a single review is not going to matter, or 2 or 3 is not going to matter. But over time, as you accumulate more and more reviews that have that similar keyword phrase in it, it's going to help you show up better in searches for those keywords in the future. But you can't tell your customers what to write, because that's against the rules with Google and pretty much every review site. But you can do a little Jedi mind trick that helps them think about it in the right way. So on that thank you, or on that review page where it says, thanks for doing business, let us know how we did, and you give them the links in between, put in a little blurb that says, hey, if you're not sure what to write, the best reviews offer specific details and helpful tips. Now, I listed a lot of questions out here, but you really only want to pick one or two. And these are auto dealership focused questions because it's easier to understand the concept here. We could really go down the rabbit hole. Which strain did you buy? Or do you prefer gummies, or do you prefer bud, or any of those things? But figure out what keywords you want to show up better for and ask a couple of questions as a guide point of answer these types of things when you write your review, and you're going to see that those questions pop up more often, or those keyword phrases pop up more often because you ask those questions. You want to make sure you respond to every single review. A lot of businesses only respond to the positives, and a lot of businesses only respond to the negatives, but you want to make sure you're responding to everything. Really, really, really important because it shows engagement. And remember, when you're responding to those negative reviews, those responses aren't for the person that left the bad review. You should be trying to contact that person offline to rectify the situation in the real world. Your response to the negative review online is for every potential customer in the future that reads those bad reviews and wants to see how your business handled those situations. We're going to finish up with your Google business profile, formerly called Google My Business, very recently rebranded to the kind of stupid new name, but it's your new homepage. It's the first impression you're going to make with potential customers when they look for you by name or when they're finding you in a search on either the Map Pack or Google Maps. And your Google business profile is important there because it's what actually allows you to show up as a Map Pack result or as a Google Map result. It's really important to use your actual business name. Don't add additional keywords because that will get you suspended if you get caught doing it. It's important to select the right categories as well. There are 10 slots for categories. You want to select as many slots that apply to what you do. So the most helpful thing here is Plepper Tools interactive list. You enter in a single category and it will give you a list of all of the other related categories that are often selected along with that category. So it helps you figure out, oh, maybe here's some categories over here like alternative medicine that I might not have considered before that would be beneficial to include. You can also use a really cool plugin for Chrome called Gmb Spy that allows you to see all of the categories that your competitors have selected. You can only see the primary category, the first category, when you're looking at businesses online, but this plugin will let you see all of their categories. So it's really cool. And you want to be strategic with your primary category because that primary category carries more weight. It's more valuable. You'll show up more often in searches related to that primary category. And I've got some information that I'm going to share in a minute. It's going to show you why a lot of dispensaries get this bit wrong. It's important to upload a lot of high quality photos, and you want to make sure you list a local area code phone number. People don't need 800 numbers anymore. Everyone can call for free on their cell phones. So if you want to do call tracking, that's okay. In fact, you should do call tracking. It's best practice, but you want to make sure your tracking number is a local area code phone number. And you put that tracking number as your primary number, so that's what the public sees, but you put your actual local phone number as an alternate number so that Google's algorithm sees consistency with all of the other directory sites that might list your information. You want to make sure that you add UTM tracking to your website link because attribution is broken. A lot of times the traffic that comes that's actually organic search traffic on mobile devices, the mobile device, if it's iOS, doesn't pass referral information back to Google Analytics. So Google Analytics then reports that traffic as direct traffic because there is no referral information. So if you use UTM tracking and put a string like this on the end of your URL, it forces it to be attributed correctly in Google Analytics and gives you much better data. You want to make sure that you're using Google Posts. They show at the bottom of your profile on desktop, but they show mixed in on mobile, and they're basically free ads that show in your profile in search results. So why would you not use Google Posts? They're awesome. They help you stand out from your competition, help attract more interest from potential customers. I did an entire episode of a series called Whiteboard Friday for an SEO toolset company called Moz last year. So go watch this video. It's 15 minutes, densely packed information all about how to be more successful with posts. And again, I'm going to pull a little bit out. The most important bit here is to optimize the post thumbnail. So the full post can have a lot of text and a big image, but nobody's going to see that if the thumbnail isn't compelling enough to click on in the first place. So you really need to pay attention to what's visible in that thumbnail if you want your posts to be successful. But unfortunately, it's really tough to do image cropping. It's slightly higher than vertical center. It's not always consistent about how it crops. So half of your image may be cropped out, or the part that you want to show might be cropped out, or a part of your text in the image might be cropped out. So for better control over what's going to be visible in the thumbnail, we created a Photoshop guide. You can download the Photoshop document at this URL right here, and it looks like this. Anything within that white grid is going to show in the thumbnail, and the full image will show once they've clicked the thumbnail to see the full post. You also need to pay attention to the questions and answers widget in your Google Business Profile. It allows anybody to ask you a question, and any random person in the community can answer that question for you. And that should terrify you. Customers actually think it's a chat program or a chat widget where there's someone at the other end waiting to answer their questions as they enter them. But what it really is a community discussion widget from Google Maps that's just included in your Google Business Profile. When someone asks a question, a lot of different people can answer that question. So questions can have a lot of different answers, but the answer that has the most thumbs up is the one that's displayed as the primary answer. And then to read more answers, you have to click the link to view all the answers. So it's really important to pay attention and make sure that your business owner answers are always upvoted to be the primary answers to the questions. You can even load your own questions in. It's encouraged by Google. We call it a pre-site FAQ page. People aren't going to go to your website to ask those questions. They're sure not going to call you to ask those questions. So get those common questions loaded and then answer those questions and keep your answers upvoted so that it's a better pre-site FAQ experience. And I always like to share some fun examples here because I've been doing this for a bit and I've seen stuff all over the world that's really funny. So some fun examples here to talk about. This was for a car dealership where obviously this ask a question button is maybe a couple of inches away on the screen from the phone number, or if they're on mobile, it's really close to the phone number. But they say, hey, do you have a phone number? And this is for a dealership, obviously, but we see this for all kinds of businesses where people, again, think it's chat. And they just ask for the phone number, even though the phone number's right there, and they can click on it on mobile, or they could go to the website and get the phone number. They're not going to do that because they think that this is a chat or an instant messaging, situation. And look, the business hasn't answered that question. And this was a fun one. Somebody just said, your website sucks. And somebody even answered it and said, yeah, I'm not a fan of it either, which means you probably need to look at your website and figure out how to make it more user-friendly. This was a fun one. I was doing an event for some car dealers in Austin, Texas, and I pulled up some local examples. And the question was, does this dealership have a body shop? And the answer was, don't go here. Look at the reviews. I had a horrible experience with them. They lie to you and everyone else. But notice there's 6 more answers. And if you look, whenever the business answers, it says owner in parentheses there. And this is a much better answer. Well, it just so happened this guy ended up being in the room. And he said, hey, I work at this dealership. And I said, oh, I wasn't trying to embarrass you. And he said, oh, I'm not embarrassed. I just want to know how to fix it. We grabbed 3 people sitting in the front row and had those 3 people go to this guy's business profile and click thumbs up. Because if you notice, this original answer just had 1 thumbs up and the dealership answer had no thumbs up. Once they did those 3 thumbs up, immediately this answer became the primary answer to the question. So it's that easy to influence what shows up to potential customers. This was for a hotel in Boston where I was visiting for a conference, and it was an older New England building, and the hallways were very twisted and weird, and the room numbers weren't numbered like traditional hallways. It was very confusing, and so someone actually asked the question, how are room numbers ordered? And this guy just says alphabetically, and look at his smug little smile. He's super happy about that answer. But again, the business should be paying attention, and that hotel should have answered that question and made it more clear. And this last one is my favorite example of all time. It has since been changed because the guy thinks he's a comedian, but this is for the London Eye, the big Ferris wheel on the Thames River in downtown London. And this question has actually been upvoted because it's been liked so many times. So the question appears natively in their panel instead of just the link to go to questions and answers section. And the question is, do you have to wear a helmet? And the answer is, or used to be, you don't have to, but you can if you wish. I believe Viking helmets are a popular choice, which we all laugh at, but that's not a great pre-site FAQ experience for one of the most popular tourist destinations in all of London, and they should be paying attention. So what you need to do is make sure that you're asking your own questions and keeping your own questions upvoted so that it's an awesome pre-site FAQ experience, just like this. So we are running a pretty massive research project on Google Business Profiles right now, and we're doing 3 major verticals. We are doing car dealerships, we are doing dispensaries, and we are doing attorneys. And for dispensaries, we pulled data on 2,584 Google business profiles. And we found those by running these three keywords: dispensary, cannabis, and marijuana in all of those cities, which all happen to be cities and states where marijuana is legal. And then we looked at the map pack results. So that's the three results. And then we clicked the find more results. And then we looked at positions 1 through 20. So it's dispensaries that ranked for those three terms in positions 1 through 20 in each of those cities. The full study results will be released later this year on the SearchLab website, but here are a couple of high points of things that we found. I hope you get that joke right there. So looking at the primary categories, remember I said earlier that the primary category is more influential and more weighted. There are 59 different primary categories for all of these dispensaries, and the breakdown looks like this: 80% cannabis store, which is what should be primary. But then the next most common one was alternative medicine practitioner. If you're really a dispensary, you should have cannabis store as your primary, not alternative medicine practitioner. And then look at the next one. 2.2% of the profiles that we looked at just had the most generic thing you could ever choose, which is store. And 2% had delivery service, which is applicable if you offer delivery from your dispensary, but that probably shouldn't be your primary category unless you're being strategic and trying to stand out from all the other dispensaries in town as the place to go for delivery. And then 1.9% tobacco shop. But remember, I said there are 10 category slots. 61% of the profiles that we looked at only had a single category selected, which is really problematic. If we look at all the reviews, there were a total of 981,418 reviews across all these profiles, which ended up making it that each dispensary averaged 380.1 reviews. So think about how many reviews you have as a dispensary. Do you have 380? Because if not, that's probably what you need to target, because that's kind of the average of what we're seeing. And remember, I mentioned you should have UTM tracking on your website link. Only 44% of the dispensaries had that tracking on there. So those 44% are definitely paying attention and being proactive about getting the best data and showing up better in searches. Think about it. Are you doing it as well? The Q&A section is pretty huge too. A lot more questions asked of dispensaries than a lot of other verticals. We're seeing an average of almost 11 questions per dispensary profile, which is a lot. But out of all of those questions that had been asked by potential customers, only 1% of all of the questions overall had a primary answer from the business, which means a lot of questions are getting asked, but a lot of dispensaries are not answering those questions. And if we look over the last 12 months, 94% of the dispensaries we looked at had not published a single Google post, which is crazy talk. You should be doing it. Remember, it's like a free ad. Looking at photos, the profile we found across all of those that had the most photos had 6,075 photos in the one profile for the dispensary. The dispensary that had the most questions, 303 questions asked to a single dispensary. And the dispensary with the most reviews had 28,145 reviews. Now, I'm also doing a little bit of an analysis with a partner that detects whether reviews come from legitimate profiles or not. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that a lot of these reviews are fake. It's highly unlikely that most dispensaries are averaging, what was it, 380 reviews, but this guy's got 28,000. That's a massive gap there. Then I could also filter by average ranking position and see some interesting stuff. So if we're looking at the average number of photos, the dispensaries that rank number 1 average 110 photos. The dispensaries that rank number 10 average a little bit fewer photos. And notice both of those are higher than what the average we see across all the profiles. The average number of questions, now keep in mind, the number of questions you have or the answers to your questions don't influence ranking, but if you are ranking, those questions will influence more customers clicking through or more potential customers becoming customers. The number 1 positions averaged 19 questions. The number 10 positions averaged 6 questions. And the overall average was 10.7. So again, you want to be more than the average. Looking at reviews do influence. The average number of reviews was 380. The dispensaries that ranked number 1 averaged 565, almost 566. The guys at number 10 were less than half of that at just 227. And so the average number of the review rating was 4.5 across all dispensaries. Number 1, average was 4.5. Number 10 ranking position, average of 4. So not so great. If we're looking at the reviews and classifying which ones are positive and which ones are negative. So positive would be reviews of either 4 stars or 5 stars. The average is 85.6% of all the reviews for a dispensary are positive. At number 1, the average is 83.5, so a little lower than the average. But at number 10, the average is 74.4. So the more good reviews you have, the better chance you have of ranking higher. And then if we look at word count, so nonstop words, we're not counting the, of, a, and, things like that. If we're looking at word count on the landing page that the Google Business Profile points to, position number 1 averages 327 words on the page. Position number 10 averages 182 words on the page. So again, if you're writing the best answer to the question, and it's the best answer in the local area, and it's uniquely about your dispensary in the local area and why you're awesome, it's going to be tough to do that in 182 words. It's actually going to be tough to do that in 300 words, but you want to make sure that you're writing those great answers. We also have an SEO scoring matrix that's basically an SEO audit. So it looks at a kind of a quick down and dirty look at the tactics being used by any particular dispensary, and it scores the 4 most important areas that influence search visibility: the content on your site and how it's optimized, the links pointed to your site, your Google Business Profile, and your reviews and how you answer those reviews. If you want to get your site scored, obviously you're watching this online, you can't give me a card, so you can pop me an email. I'll share my email here momentarily. Even if you're not a dispensary and you're just watching this, I can score any business. It doesn't have to be a dispensary. So pop me your email. I'm happy to score your sites. So thank you so much for sticking with me. I know that was a whole lot and it was a little painful to sit through that fire hose. But now, hopefully when you're looking at search results and trying to figure out why your dispensary isn't showing up as well as you'd like it to, you have a better understanding and you're not just going to stare and drool, and you'll know what works. And hopefully maybe you'll be really excited to do better SEO on your website. So peace out. That is the end. And this was Harold and Kumar's guide to showing up in local searches. There's my email address. Shoot me an email if you'd like to get your site scored, or if you'd like to get a copy of the slides. And as always, at the end of my slides, there is a list of all the movies by order of release date. So you have a really cool list of funny movies to go watch. Thank you so much for watching today. Thanks for sticking around and watching the whole thing. That's definitely all the time we've got left for this week's episode, so you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesdays.